Coming up on iOS today, we wish you a happy Valentine's Day because as we record the show, it will be Tuesday, February 14th. And we also talk about apps for using and browsing and searching Mastodon. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Tooot.
This is iOS Today, episode 641, recorded Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. Mastodon Apps for iPhone and iPad. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by 8 Sleep. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer, and the pod cover is the ultimate sleep machine. Go to 8sleep.com/iOS to check out the pod cover and save $150 at checkout. 8 Sleep currently ships within the USA, Canada, the UK, select countries in the EU, and Australia. Welcome back, or welcome to iOS Today. This is the show where we're going to talk all things iOS, tvOS, HomePod OS, watchOS, OS, etc., etc., etc. Yes, this is how you out there can learn to make the most of all of those Apple devices you have on hand. I am one of your hosts of this show, Micah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard, and I'm slightly disappointed that I have to pull my jumper up for people to see. I'm wearing a little jumper that says "Love is Love" on it in little rainbow colors because, it's Valentine's Day. Why not? Got to have some love and peace everywhere.
Indeed. I love your lovely jumper. It's very cute. Yes, this is today a show where we thought we'd take the time. This is the thing. It's not everybody is on Mastodon, the social networking service, I guess we'll kind of call it. But there have been quite a few people hopping on board the train. And so many person who had been on Twitter or may still be on Twitter is either dipping their toe into Mastodon or completely migrating away from Twitter to Mastodon. And we thought, given that there are a number of apps out there now, it'd be a good time to talk about that. A quick little introduction, of course, for folks who might not know. Mastodon has long been kind of put out there as a replacement for Twitter, but it exists in and of itself. And I think it's important to understand the sort of differences between the two platforms. Mastodon is it's a protocol. And that's where things are a little bit different, because instead of it being like a social media service where you go to Twitter and you sign up for that social media service, or a new one comes along called Twibber, and you sign up for Twibber, and then all of your stuff is on Twibber's servers and you're posting there. Mastodon is like, let's take the idea of Twitter, where you have these short posts that you share to the internet, that you just send out there, and other people can follow you to read those posts that you send out. They take that idea and they make like a package, and anyone can get this little package. And inside of this shrink-wrapped package is a little machine, and this machine is Mastodon. It is the thing that lets you post and have other people follow you. And so all of these little machines kind of have antennae off of them, and they can all look at each other. And so you can have your own little Mastodon machine, and somebody in the UK can have their little Mastodon machine, and you invite your friends to your Mastodon machine. They invite their friends to their Mastodon machine. And then because they can all look at each other's, then you can see those posts from other people. They can see your posts, and it kind of all works together. So in that way, Mastodon is not the same as Twitter, because Twitter ultimately has one kind of area of truth, one big Twitter machine, and we all know who has the keys to that Twitter machine. But with Mastodon, depending on which server you become a part of, which Mastodon instance you join, those people will be the ones that have control of that specific machine. And if you want to, you can create your own machine. That is a very base level kind of introduction to Mastodon itself. I think ultimately what you do is you go to Mastodon, which again, that can kind of be difficult whenever someone's like, go sign up for Mastodon. What exactly does that mean? But you sign up for Mastodon, you choose a server, and then you are there. I, for example, am at Micah Sargent at mastodon.social. And then we also have a twit, Mastodon twit.social. Yeah, so a little confusing, but ultimately it's kind of like Twitter in the actions that you take on the platform. Is that fair, Rosemary?
Yeah, I would say so. So it's using a protocol called ActivityPub. So there are other things out there that some of you might already use that integrates with this, such as micro.blog, which has ActivityPub support, so you don't have to go create a separate account. And when we say something like the handle for the iOS Today show on Mastodon is iOS Today at twit.social, that's because it's a little bit more like email where you've got all of these different servers. And so the twit.social is just telling you which server it is. And iOS Today, well, that's the account on there. So there could also be an iOS Today on mastodon.social, for example. There isn't, to be clear, or if there is, it's not the official one. But it's one of those things where it's a little bit complicated, but there are some really great apps that can actually help make this whole thing a lot easier to understand. And especially if you're coming from Twitter and say, for example, you're a Tweetbot user, we've got a recommendation that might make it a little bit easier if you want to try the newest social network that is becoming popular, though Mastodon itself, of course, has been around for a few years now, several years, actually.
Nice. All right. So with that, it is time to take a look at some of the ways to use Mastodon. And I think the most important thing to understand here is I saw somebody say not too long ago, the official Mastodon app. And that is in and of itself not an accurate means of talking about the apps and services that are available for Mastodon, because there is no quote unquote official instance. And so therefore there is no official app. There's no sort of blessed existence for using Mastodon. It can be used through any number of means. But if you were looking for the app created by Mastodon, the company that is behind the protocol, then that is Mastodon for iPhone and iPad on the App Store.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a free app to download, as are, in fact, all of the apps that we're going to talk about today. They're all free to download. There's no in-app subscriptions. And if you go and you open the app and you want to sign up, then it'll give you a choice of servers, which you can browse through and pick one and sign up. Now, there is something we should say about Mastodon where if you sign up for a particular account, so say, for example, you were to sign up on one of the .lol domains because there's a number of servers there. And then you decide later, oh, actually, you know what, I'd like to move to twit.social. Because that is a network. First of all, once you've signed up on Toot.social, which you would do first, then you get approved. And if you're approved, then you can actually migrate your account. So you can actually move from one server to another. There's a whole process built in, which will take all of your followers, all the people you're following, and move them over. The only thing that doesn't move is your posts. But you can actually move later if you wanted to. And the Mastodon app is one of the ways to do that. So I have the Mastodon app here on my phone. Micah has demoed this before previously in an app cap. And I can even switch over to the iOS Today account so that I can see all the things that have popped up in the iOS Today feed of things that we're following. So I personally reblogged this amazing cat, which, is a psycho killer because it killed a cassette, as in audio cassette. And you can see as well, if I pop over to the profile, things that the iOS Today account has posted, such as the apps, the episodes that we've recently released, including last week's episode. And, if you've used a Twitter app before, it's very similar. So there's a search where you can search through posts, you can search hashtags and news. And you can also search your particular community. That's the instance that you're on. So in this case, I'd be searching twit.social. And then you can also search things which might be for you. So things that could theoretically be recommended, such as Jeff Jarvis, who is one of the hosts on This Week in Google here on the Twit network.
Now, again, that is the closest to official method for using Mastodon on mobile, and is regularly updated by the folks that are creating Mastodon. But that may be the first app that you end up going to, given that, you're, oh, what is this Mastodon thing? You search for Mastodon in the App Store, you come across Mastodon, you download it, and you create your account through that. But then you may want to expand and experiment and try different things, because you know that there are other options out there. And I think what has quickly become a runaway hit is the app by Tapbots called Ivory. And that is because it is close to a Twitter experience. It is what you would expect if you were a Tweetbot user. Of course, Tweetbot was the Twitter client made by Tapbots and had been around for a long time. And so Tapbots said, okay, well, what we're doing is we're going to create a Mastodon app that I think feels right at home for me when I have used Tweetbot in the past. I have to say, I had not used Tweetbot in a long time, so there was an adjustment for me, but it did make me feel a little bit more like I was likely to keep using Mastodon, where in the past I just didn't really, it didn't keep me engaged, and I would just kind of pop it open and leave it. But this helped me to kind of settle in and feel right at home over on Mastodon. And so here is the app on my screen. It has kind of what you would expect, I think, your home screen that has all of the toots or the posts that are coming in, the @mention sign so you can see what people have said to you, your own profile, notifications, and of course the search feature. And if I want to send a toot or a message, I can tap in the bottom right corner, post something. Of course, you can choose, is it public? Is it unlisted? Is it for only your followers? Can it only be seen by people who you mention? You can add photos to it easily. You can add GIFs. You can add a poll. You can add a content warning, which is a part of Mastodon that's built in by default. So what's nice is they integrate all of those features, unlike with Twitter, where a lot of that stuff was locked into only the first-party Twitter app. You can, of course, @mention people, add hashtags, and then there are some other settings like launching the camera and being able to take a photo there. As I scroll through, I've got the option to respond to someone, to boost a post, which is akin to retweet on Twitter, like a post or favorite it, share that post somewhere else. And I love the share icon because it is reminiscent of a mastodon, like an elephant with the ears on the side and then the trunk kind of going up. Very cute. And then, of course, a little settings icon so I can view details about the specific post, view who has favorited it, view who has boosted it, open a link online. I can bookmark it, or if it's in a different language, I can easily translate it as well. There are swipe commands like viewing the details of a post, also being able to quickly like or respond to it. And then you have options to change how you are viewing. So right now I'm on home. There's local, which means only the people on my Mastodon.social instance, which it's quite a few people because this is an instance that features quite a few people. And then federated, which is the entire timeline across all of the federated Mastodon space. You've got all sorts of settings that you can go through here. So it's got multi-account support. So you'll see that I've got my account and then my Clockwise podcast account here. You can change the display, so the way that it looks. You can add behaviors. So There are different features that you might want, like I have ignore content warnings turned on because a lot of people use content warnings pretty regularly on Mastodon, more so than I've ever seen on any other social media network. And so I find myself tapping to reveal the post anyway, because the content warnings are often just like, hey, here's a quick summary of what's coming up, as opposed to being content warnings that are like, hey, here's something sensitive that you might want to know about before you look at it or read it. You can drag and drop posts around, switch between themes. You can quickly boost posts. Quickly boost posts if you'd like. And then, of course, you've got notifications. You can change the browser that you're using for it, and also sync between different devices. So right now you can see I've got all of it synced. Tapbots has said that they are working on the word is hard. I don't know why I can't come up with it. Oh, yeah. They're working on a Mac app as well. So that syncing will be great for that. And then, of course, in each account, there is the ability to edit a profile, change notifications for that specific account, and even set up a read it later service for each of those. So I would say, despite the fact that we're still in early iterations of the Ivory app, it is a full-featured Mastodon client that has very much impressed me.
Yes. I do just want to take a moment to note that as things come in under the different tabs, then you'll get a little dot. So somebody has mentioned the iOS Today channel, and they've said, thank you for doing an iOS Today episode on Mastodon, but there was a little blue dot underneath this as it came in. And then it's also, of course, there under notifications as well. And these little ones at the bottom are the three icons in the tab bar at the bottom on the right-hand side. If you tap and hold on them, you can replace them with different options too. So if you prefer, then you could actually have your bookmarks here. And a bookmark on Mastodon is something that's built in. It's not the same as a favorite. It's specifically saying like, hey, I want to just have a note to myself to go back and check this later. And if you tap and hold on the little star icon, then you can just swipe straight to bookmarks. I love this feature. And also I could actually favorite this from different accounts as well. So if I wanted to favorite this from my personal account, then I could do that. So yeah, that's just one of the nice features. So play a little bit with the tap and hold if you are going to give Ivory a try, and it is free to download and give it a go. And then it's $14.99 a year to pay for all of the features that you can unlock. And all of that's documented on their website, along with the upcoming releases that they're planning on doing. Some of which may need Mastodon to do some implementations, and some of which we already have some alternatives for in our show notes.
Indeed. All right. I think we'll do one more and then we'll take a break. Tell us about the next option.
Yeah, so the next option I wanted to mention, because it is a free open source app. And when I say free open source, I mean you can go and look at this on GitHub if you want. If you ask for a feature, there's a fairly good chance that the developer is going to go ahead and implement this straight away. And this is Ice Cubes. So Ice Cubes, I'm not quite sure exactly, to be honest, where the name came from, but it's an iOS app that's free to download for Mastodon. So just like with the other apps that we've mentioned, you can have multiple accounts. So I'm signed in with both my personal account and the iOS Today account here. And I can scroll through and see everything in my feed. I can look at the messages. There's nothing for iOS Today just yet. I can explore and I can see what's happening. So there is a hashtag that is called Valentine's Day that is trending. And I can go and check out my profile and update that and so on if I wanted to. And of course, all of the other Mastodon features that are integrated are right here, including the ability to go ahead and post with all of those options that we were talking about earlier, including content warnings. Content warnings, I have to say, are really great if you're talking about like a show and you don't want to, put spoilers in somebody's timeline. Then you could say, like latest episode of Death in Paradise, and then, actually put all of the things that you want to post about after the content warning so that they don't get shown. So if you're watching Death in Paradise and like me, you've not seen the latest episode yet, then you don't have to worry about it getting spoiled, which is one of the great features that's just built into Mastodon that's for free and available to everyone.
All righty, folks, let us take a quick break so I can tell you about our sponsor this week. It is, you've probably heard of them. They're fantastic. And they are the difference between a good night's sleep and not for me. It's 8 Sleep who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. Good sleep, said it before, I'll say it again, and the ultimate game changer. And the pod cover, which is on my bed, it's the ultimate sleep machine. Consistent good sleep can help reduce the likelihood of serious health issues. It can decrease the risk of heart disease. It can lower blood pressure. It can even reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. If you struggle to fall asleep, if you wake up in the middle of the night, you argue with your partner over the thermostat, well, stop doing all of that with 8 Sleep. You know, if Valentine's Day is here, you don't want to be arguing with your partner about the thermostat. And the 8 Sleep pod cover works hard all night long to improve your sleep so you don't have to. I used to wake up every night, just absolutely, I'm a hot sleeper. And so I'd wake up, I'd be sweaty, it'd be miserable. I would have to get up out of bed, cool down before I could actually get back to sleep again. And the 8 Sleep has completely changed that for me because it starts cooling the bed before I lay down in it. I lay down in it. I can have all of my covers on top of me just as I want. And I will not have to wake up in the middle of the night feeling miserable. It's amazing because it uses a bunch of sensors that are built into it to track the temperature of the room, as well as your temperature, as well as all of these other metrics. And then using that, it will make adjustments to the temperature overnight in a way that helps you continue to stay asleep, and also in order to improve the sleep that you're having. It fits on any mattress, and it allows you to adjust the temperature of your sleeping environment, providing the optimal temperature throughout the night for the best night's sleep. It features dual zone temperature control. So if you were going, oh boy, we're going to have to argue over what the temperature should be. No. You and your partner both get to choose what the sides of the bed temperature are. Cool as 55 degrees Fahrenheit or as hot as 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And again, it uses biometrics, the environment, and your sleep stages to determine how the pod cover should make temperature adjustments throughout the night that limit wake-ups and increase your percentage of deep sleep, one of the most important stages of sleep. It is the stage of sleep that is regenerative. In addition to its best-in-class temperature regulation, the pod cover has sensors that also track your health and sleep metrics without the need to use any wearable devices. So I don't have to have a watch on my wrist or some sort of thing that I set in the bed to keep track of my sleep. I can see all of my metrics in the app. And I got to tell you, just yesterday I was hopping in to make an adjustment, and I realized how good I felt. And then I went and I looked in the app, and no wonder I felt so good yesterday. I got a 99% out of 100 on the quality of sleep. There was an hour and 26 minutes of deep sleep, an hour and 30 minutes of REM sleep, which those two stages are important for. We don't know exactly why REM sleep is so important. That's something that we're still studying. When I say we, I mean we as humanity. But deep sleep, of course, is that restorative sleep stage. And so the goal is to get more than an hour and 10 minutes of deep sleep, which I did. I could see my heart rate and everything. Everything was either in range or above average. And so I thought, oh, well, now that makes sense why I slept so well or why I felt so good, because I actually got a really, really good night of sleep. Better sleep is the health habit that you are going to love sticking to, seriously, night after night. You can wake up feeling fully energized with the pod cover so you can tackle whatever life throws at you. Go to 8sleep.com/iOS, save $150 at checkout on the pod cover. 8 Sleep currently ships within the USA, Canada, the UK, select countries in the EU, and Australia. That's 8sleep.com/iOS. And our thanks to 8 Sleep for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today and for making my sleep so much better. Appreciate you. All right, back from the break. And now it's time for some honorable mentions for apps to use with Mastodon.
Yeah, so there's a whole host of different Mastodon apps out there, and there's no way we are going to cover all of them today. But there are some other ones that you might want to consider checking out if none of the previous ones so far appeal to you. And the first one up on my list is Metatext. So Metatext is just a really simple app that lets you use Mastodon. You've got your home timeline in the main timeline section, then your local timeline for just your server, which is the tooot.social server here, and then the federated timeline, including somebody who's using that season 19 finale spoiler that I was mentioning with the content warning. I really appreciate them doing that. So I'm not sure what this is season 19 of, but whoever's watching season 19 of whatever the show is will hopefully not have that spoiled for them. It's just a very simple basic app that allows you to, include whatever you like, including some nice custom emoji, which are on the server as well. That's something that you can do on Mastodon. So there are some custom emoji on the Tooot server, which we could use, including, the Superman one, which will then show up as a Superman icon when posted. So that's one of them. Some of the others that I'll mention, I won't show everything. There is also Toot, which is T followed by 3 O's and a T. And Mastoot and Tootle for Mastodon. And I have to say, I love the fact that originally what is now called a post on Mastodon was called a toot. So just like there are tweets for Twitter, there are toots for Mastodon, or were toots. They're now called posts, but a lot of things are still using the word toot just because it's a little bit more fun. So why not? These are all free apps to download and give a try. They all have their own advantages and features and different user interfaces, which are worth looking into and trying out. And, because of the way Mastodon works, it's really difficult for anybody to put anything like tracking and analytics in there because everybody's going to see really different things anyway. So yay. And there isn't somebody who's just decided to start charging for the API and hasn't yet settled on pricing, even though it was supposed to roll out yesterday.
Whoa. Breathe in, breathe out. Any other honorable mentions?
Well, there is a useful tool that I wanted to mention because one thing that Mastodon does not yet support is reposting, or rather reposting with a quote. So you can, and I will just pop back into Ivory for this one to show folks. And if I actually press on the right button, then I can even show you my phone. Then at the bottom of the posts here, this is why I'm using Ivory for this. There's a little conversation bubble with 29, which is it's got a little rocket with 116, which is the number of boosts this post has got. And so a boost is essentially like you would retweet something. So you're just sharing something. But I can't share something with content. That is, something that you can't do with Mastodon. And so I can't add my own commentary to it. But there's a really nice little tool called Tooot by Simon Stovering, who has created a number of other apps that I really love. And what you can do with this is you can share a post to Tooot. And I'm going to have to find it because it's now gone and hidden from me because I was shuffling everything around earlier, which was really not a good idea. I shouldn't have done that. It's probably in this list instead, actually. There we go, Tooot. So when I use Tooot, then what it can do is it can share things as an image. It can also allow you to copy an attribution so that you can tag the original person that you are quoting. And you can then also copy some alt text. So if you're sharing the post as an image, then you can actually copy the text from the original post as the alt text, which means that anybody who's using a screen reader is not just going to be given, here's you can't see, and also, you don't actually know what's there. So by using all three of these, then you can actually, combine this together. And what I can actually do is I can just pop this in here like this, and it will go ahead and do its best to put everything in that for me so that I can just Tooot with my own content. So I can actually then go ahead and write something above that, which is really nice if you want to share something. If Micah posted something very insightful about how wonderful a time we have, hosting iOS today, then I might want to boost that and share my own, I also love working with Micah above that. And that's how I could do it for the time being. There may be something that happens along those lines later in Mastodon itself, but for the time being, Tooot is free to download and $2.99 to unlock all of the features in app.
Beautiful. I actually purchased that so quick, picked that up so quick because and that's the thing. You wonder whether you should do a thing that is, not directly supported. And I know some people have feelings about using or doing the quote tweet function because of how it's been used negatively on Twitter in the past. It's referred to as quote unquote dunking. But I think overall I've seen some really good behavior from folks who are using this feature on Mastodon or this app specifically on Mastodon to not do the dunking thing where you quote what someone has said and then you say something snarky over the top of it to try to make them feel bad. I haven't seen a whole lot of that on Mastodon yet. So use responsibly is what I am encouraging folks to do.
Yeah. I do want to mention, because you can edit posts on Mastodon. So for example, if you post something and it's got a typo in it, then you can go back and you can edit it and you can fix that typo. Of course, if you're using something like Retweet, then it's not going to be able to go back and update that image for you, but you can go back and edit your own post and use Retweet to update the image and things like that instead, so that you can, of course, update any edits that anybody else inputs if you if you spot one of those. So, for example, if Micah had posted that he loves hosting iToday on twit.tv, then he went back and edited it, then I could go back and edit my post as well. So make sure that it had the correct version.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, folks, with that, it is time to move along to the news here on iOS Today. It is time for the news. Up first in the news, there's a new patent that has been granted, not just filed, but granted, that may have people going, what could be coming to the Apple Watch? According to Patently Apple, which pays attention to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to see what patents have been both filed and approved, there is, quote, a method of a camera being attached to an Apple Watch band. This would allow the Apple Watch to be rotated to take a photo while you're running, for example. So it seems like the way that this works is you've got the Apple Watch over. You put a strap on your Apple Watch, right? And the strap has a camera built into it, and then you can use the watch and the camera at the same time, because it's almost as if you have like a double strap of a watch. So the watch, the watch is on your wrist, and then to the side of it kind of would be the camera. So this is what iMore says. Looking at the patent, it seems you can wear the Apple Watch on top of this strap, which can be detachable. It looks similar to an Hermes double tour band, but here the watch is placed on top and you can still use the camera remotely. I don't know. This is odd. I liked the idea. I remember early days getting pitch after pitch from this company who was making an Apple Watch band that had a camera built into it, where the band would slide in just like normal, and on the edge of the band there was a camera lens, and so you could hold up your wrist and you could take a photo that way. And that was kind of a cool idea that I think ultimately has not gone anywhere. But that makes more sense to me than what I'm trying to wrap my head around here with this patent from Apple.
I think it's one of those things where it seems a little bit strange, and especially the diagram that's currently showing, if you're watching the video version, where there's sort of like a hand and like the display is between the thumb and the index finger, but the band and the actual watch seems to be on the wrist. It seems a little weird, but the thing that I found really interesting in this article is specifically the hand gestures that it was talking about using or suggesting that would be used to control this, because the hand gestures are actually something that is built into watchOS already, that you can use with the assistive touch controls, where clenching, so turning your hand into a fist, can tap, double pinching with your finger, your index finger or pointer finger and your thumb, will move back one, and doing that once will move you to the next one. And this is something that you can actually do already. And I thought that this was a minimum, a good opportunity to remind people of that. And, you know, if you've got any use cases for a James Bond style camera on your wrist, I would love to hear about them. As it is, I kind of feel like the remote control built into watchOS, where you can control the camera built into your phone, might be a little more useful for most folks.
I agree. That's how I use the camera when I need to remotely. It just seems to work better that way. But you know, hey, again, multiple ways to do things, and it's an idea. It's a thought. All right. Now, remember a while ago when we saw the people complaining that there was a person who had an Apple TV and they don't have other Apple devices, and they went to launch their Apple TV and they couldn't accept the terms and conditions on their Apple TV. Because it said, hey, you need to accept these conditions by launching a device, iPhone, iPad, one of those, in order to accept those terms. Well, Apple says, hey, look, you don't need to use an iPhone or an iPad or a device running iOS 16 or iPadOS 16 or later, because you can just accept those terms online. Interestingly, though,
the support document was then removed.
The support document was then removed.
Yeah.
So,
and yeah, it's a little bit weird, because you're supposed to be able to just, if this happens to you, log into iCloud.com and accept it there. And I'm sure if you're listening to the episode of this podcast called iOS Today, you probably have more devices than just an Apple TV. So you can go ahead and, you know, sign in, and accept the updated terms and conditions on one of those. But I find it really interesting that the support document appeared and then disappeared a day later. So I think something has hiccuped somewhere, and some poor engineer is probably tearing their hair out trying to figure out what is going wrong here and why is this happening. But as it is, fingers crossed, it will all be cleared up in the not too distant future. And hopefully Mac Rumors will update their article at some point when, you know, this comes back, so that we can link folks to that, and you will have the latest version or not of the support document, whatever ends up happening with Apple.
We'll definitely keep an eye on it, because wait. All right. Moving along, there has been some talk about how or how not Apple will be updating its iPhone to feature USB-C. There is an EU law that basically says devices need to be able to charge using USB-C, because it is a it is a port standard that so many different companies use that it has kind of become ubiquitous, and so you need to use it as well. What 9to5Mac has reported is that, and take this all with a grain of salt, a huge heaping grain of salt, because these are just rumors, and these are not necessarily even from sources that are necessarily reputable. It could be that the Apple kind of first-party system will have some firmware that will allow USB-C that. Okay, so here's what's complicated. Apple has a program called Made for iPhone, and it's commonly referred to as MFI. And Made for iPhone is a certification that any device manufacturer who wants to integrate or interface with the iPhone needs to go through. They need to go through this process to say, this is a device that is truly made for iPhone. It works with iPhone. It works as expected. It goes through these tests, these rigorous tests, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And with that, you get access to use a Lightning port, or not even the actual cable itself, and have all of the stuff that comes along with that. So if Made for iPhone is a way for Apple to kind of make it so that it can kind of confirm the interoperability of accessories with the iPhone, then it's no surprise that the company would also want to do that, even if it's just a USB-C port. So there's talk that Apple may still kind of keep that made for iPhone system, but with the USB-C cable. And so there may be the need for device manufacturers to still go through the made for iPhone process and have a special USB-C that actually plugs in, as opposed to it just being a standard USB-C. Now, to be clear, you would still be able to charge with a standard USB-C, but it could be that certain things like plugging in an accessory, think of a USB-C flash drive, for example, plugging that into an iPhone might not just work off the top unless it is a made for iPhone certified accessory. Again, all of that, I was explaining it so that you understood kind of how it works. But all of that is still just a rumor. It's not necessarily that that's going to be the case. But I think that as people are looking at how Apple moves forward, of course, they're going to be thinking about how the company could retain that control and also retain the money that comes with that, because it's not an insignificant amount of money if device manufacturers are having to pay Apple to go through that certification process for their accessories.
No, exactly. It is, it's a chunk of money. And the other thing is USB-C itself is a little bit confusing, because a lot of people will think, oh yeah, USB-C, I know what that is. And the reality is USB-C is actually just a shape. So I've got a little cable here that I'm just sort of waving at the camera, but it's just a shape. This could be USB 2.1. This could be USB 2.0. This could be USB 3. This could be a Thunderbolt 4 cable. It's actually just a USB-C cable that supports 100 watts of power, and it happens to be the longest one I could get. But there's limitations on the length of a USB-C cable, depending on what it is that it's going to do. Fortunately, you can still get them in amazing braided purple, which of course was a requirement for me and my podcasting setup. But it is going to be a little bit confusing, and we're going to maybe see, and there could be a difference maybe this year. We'll see if Apple do release USB-C on the iPhone this year. There could be a difference between the regular iPhone and the Pro iPhone, because we do actually have USB-C already on the iPad. Don't forget, folks. It's in the iPad Pro 11-inch and the 12.9-inch third gen or later. iPad Air and iPad Mini all have USB-C, and you can actually connect a number of devices to them. You can just plug in a flash drive or a hard drive. You can plug in cameras, all sorts of things. And monitors too. There are few limitations on this. It feels to me like if Apple were planning on doing limitations, they might have done it already on the iPad. But equally, it may be, if you've got the non-Pro iPhone, you can't plug in a flash drive, but I don't know what that would actually benefit them. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I am going to say, folks, please don't buy USB-C extension cables. They are out of spec, and it is entirely possible they can burn your house down. So yeah, make sure that you're buying something that's actually like within USB-C specification if you're starting to upgrade cables now, because I don't want to hear from any iOS Today listeners who accidentally burnt their house down because they bought an out of spec cable.
And then the last bit of news is that Apple is or has addressed a very annoying bug as of the release of HomePod OS 16.3.2. When people updated to 16.3, they may have had some frustration that I may have experienced for sure, where I could not get my devices to work as they were expected to the first time you ask. So basically, if you asked a HomePod Mini, or a HomePod second generation to turn on a light, for example, the first time you asked it, it would say, "I'm working on that," and then it wouldn't do it. The second time you tried it, it would work, but the first time you tried it, it would not work. And the problem, of course, with that is that it didn't work the first time. So it's like, I don't think that this works. And so now I'm not going to try it again because it's disappointed me. Well, no, you just had to do it again, and then it was going to work. In the 16.3.2 update, you will see that fix. So be on the lookout for that, as that rolled out yesterday as we're recording the show. So you should see your devices update automatically, but if you'd like to update them manually, you can go into the Home app. You can tap in the top right corner on the three dots. Let me do it from an iPhone, because of course it's going to be a little bit different. But you'll tap on the three dots in the top right corner. You'll choose Home Settings, and then you will choose.
I can't see your iPhone, Micah. Sorry, if you are
that's
showing
okay.
your phone.
I purposely wasn't, but I thank you for pointing it out just in case. So the reason I'm not showing it is because it's got, people's names in there. So again, we'll launch the Home app. We'll tap the three dots in the top right corner. We'll choose Home Settings, and then you should be able to scroll down, and you will see, and I'll switch the screen over now, Software Update. And so if you tap on Software Update, it will look for an update, and you can see there's 16.3.2 that is currently downloading now and installing. That's how to force the update. Otherwise, the update will just install automatically, given a little bit of time. So get that update installed if you like to use your voice to control your devices, and that'll help out.
Yeah.
All righty, folks, it is time to move along to the next part of the show. It's Shortcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where you write in with your Shortcuts Corner requests, and Rosemary Orchard, your Shortcuts expert, provides a response. So, Rosemary Orchard, let's kick things off with some great shortcuts to combine with the apps that we talked about during the first segment of the show.
Yeah, so there's some upsides and some downsides to Mastodon, and some of the ways that we can use that will, of course, impact us. So one of the things that I have found is if, for example, I were trying to send Micah a link to a toot. So, for example, George Takai has tooted today. So if I were to just tap share, and then I tap on Micah, and then I hit send, then what Micah gets is not really necessarily a great representation of what it is that I've actually shared with him. So I will just open the messages with Micah now, and you can see that it just shows, a big Mastodon icon. Not great, right? Well, the good news is there is a great site with a shortcut that you can download. It's already out there. Somebody else has already created this. And it will help you get a nice Mastodon link that you can then share via messages and more, so that you can, actually get a good experience for everybody. So I'm going to use this one. It says copy Mastodon link. I could name this differently, but this is the default. And then if I pop back over and I paste this, then what I'm actually doing is I'm using a site called mstdn.link to share this, and then it's just linking to the Toot on George Takei's account, which I'm definitely mispronouncing. And then once this loads, which it's going to take a moment to do because I'm sharing this live on air, then you can actually see something that looks a little bit more useful. So I can see who's posted this. I've got the image that was there, and I've got, of course, what was actually posted. And this is a really nice little feature, and it's a shortcut that you can download, and it's just there on the internet, ready for you.
Wow.
And that's just a really nice little feature that you can use to share things so that folks who you're sharing stuff with through, say, messages get a nice experience. And, this is far from the only person who's gone out and made a Mastodon-related shortcut. There's another great service called tooot.pix, because in some apps, it's not easy to see if an image has got alt text. Okay, so that's the text that screen readers use to tell people what's actually in the image. And there is a service called tooot.pix, where if I share this post with tooot.pix, then I can see whether or not the image has a description. And I'm really sad to say that this one doesn't have a description. So, that doesn't really help anybody. But if I were to share something else which does have a description, and so I'm just going to check from something that I shared earlier, which should be hopefully, fingers crossed, here. There we go. If I share this one, and then I scroll down and I look in my shortcuts for the... where is it gone? It's hiding from me now. I have too many shortcuts. That is the problem with my life. There are too many shortcuts. There we go. If I show this to Tooot, then I can see that the alt text says cat wrapped up in audio tape from a cassette, which is a accurate description. I should note that the cat also has some tape in its mouth and like wrapped around an ear. So it's really doing the, no, definitely wasn't me look, which is great. So yeah, this is a another really nice shortcut that you can use. But say for example, I were in messages and Micah had sent me this link and I tapped on it and I opened it. Okay, so this would open and because it's a Mastodon link, mstdn.link, it will then send me off to wherever it actually exists on the internet. But this is opened in Safari because there is not one Mastodon. There's more than one Mastodon. But what if I want to open this in my Twitter account, in my Mastodon app of choice? When I tap on the share sheet, then I could scroll across and I could find, say, Ivory, and then it's going to actually post this link to Ivory, which, is fine. But what I can do instead is I could actually use this app called Opener, which I have set up so that it will automatically open Mastodon links in Opener. And so Opener is an app, we've talked about this on the show probably many times before, where you can, have it open, any kind of link in a specific app. But what I've done is I've customized it so that when I open it, there we go, auto open preferences. So say instead of Ivory, I could have used ice cubes, Toot, the Mastodon app itself, Tusker, Mona, and Mammoth, which are in beta only. They're not available on the App Store just yet. Actually change it if I want to use a different app again. And this is just a really nice way of, saying, okay, so I want to be able to just quickly open this link in the app of my choice, because then I can boost it or I can reply to it, whatever it is. But maybe you want to be able to do this for free in shortcuts. I happen to have made a shortcut just for this. Of course I have. And it's a very simple shortcut, which I am sharing it for everybody in the show notes. And it's just called Open Mastodon URL in Ivory. And what happens is it'll appear in your share sheet, okay, and it'll take web pages and URLs, and then it will open this URL. It's a fediverse URL specifically because it's a federation of Mastodon servers, and they all talk to each other. But it'll open that URL in Ivory. And I can even choose which specific account that I want to open it with, which is really nice. So if I pop back and I go into Safari and then I tap on the share, instead of using Opener, which is here, and you can edit this list of apps to be clear, then if I just scroll down a little bit, then I can use Open Mastodon URL in Ivory, and then I can use my account, and it's having a moment, so I will just try the Open in Ivory instead. But of course, these are all really nice features that you can play around with in shortcuts. Retoot also has shortcut support, which I'm sure will surprise absolutely nobody, because I recommended it, and Simon is the creator of Scriptable, JSON, and a few other apps that have great shortcut support. But yeah, so it turns out there's some things that you can do with Mastodon in shortcuts. Micah, who knew?
I love that. Especially the linking and being able to see everything right there is really handy, because that's one of the things that I do like about many of the other social media networks is I don't necessarily have to go into the app or go on to the internet to be able to see what exactly is going on. All right, one message from Pat. Pat writes in, "Hi, Rosemary and Mike. I love the show. I would appreciate Rosemary designing a shortcut to enable both the lock screen and associated home screen to change every morning at 6 a.m. I'm hoping you can help, fingers crossed." And that's Pat from Perth in Western Australia.
Yeah. And so this is a really great question, because there is actually support within shortcuts for changing your wallpaper. And I'll just pop my phone up on screen so folks can see. So if I look under the actions and then I go into scripting, then there's actually a whole bunch of different things that you can do here, including if I scroll down a little bit further, then you can see that I have wallpapers, and I can set my wallpaper photo wallpapers. And if I tap switch to wallpaper, then I can actually switch to a specific wallpaper. And so right now I'm currently using a sort of, this is a black with different color dots on it. And what I could do, and will do a moment, let me just pick something that should not cause too many problems. There we go, fitness. If I select that one, which happens to be wallpaper 8, and then I run this, then I'll switch to it and voila. But there's a problem. This is associated with the focus mode. It switched me from my podcasting focus mode to my fitness focus mode because my wallpapers are associated with focus modes. Now, if you don't use focus modes, this action is all you need. And you can create more wallpaper sets by tapping and holding on your home screen, and then either use the customize to customize your existing one, or if you use the plus, then you can create a new one. But if you do use focus modes, like I do, and I'll just change back out of my work focus mode and back into podcasting so that everything's where I'm expecting it to be, then what you can do, and what I would recommend you do, Pat, in settings, is to actually go into the focus mode settings, which are right here. And then what you can do is you can specify that you want things to happen at a certain time. So if you use your sleep focus mode, this one's a little special because you actually need to customize when this turns on and off in the health app. Or usually you would do that in the health app. But if I tap on this schedule and the options, then it will pop me over and I can customize that. And so then for my sleep mode, I have one particular home screen, which or lock screen rather, which is hiding, but there we go. It's the astronomy one. It's using the moon. And then I have certain home screens. And then if that turns off at 6 o'clock in the morning, then it will switch back to whatever your default is that you've set when you are not using a focus mode. And that is how I would do that if you are using focus modes. If you're not using focus modes, as I said, you can just use that simple one shortcut action, which is switch to XYZ wallpaper. And that's it. It's pretty simple. So the only thing, if you're not using focus modes at all, and you want to do that, is you may actually want to do this under the automations and the personal automations. But what I would recommend that you do is in this personal automation, use a run shortcut action. Okay. And then in shortcuts, what you would do is create a shortcut which switches to a particular wallpaper, and then you name it, because otherwise, like switch to wallpaper 8, it is not the easiest thing to remember. Like, what is wallpaper 8? What does wallpaper 8 mean? Who knows? An existential crisis, perhaps. But what you could do instead, of course, once you've selected your wallpaper and you're like, okay, that's my fitness one, then you could rename it to, day wallpaper or whatever it is the most appropriate thing for you. So that is what I would do there. And then you can switch between those as you like. So hopefully that will answer your question, Pat. And have fun in Australia, where hopefully it's getting a little bit cooler, so you're not melting quite as much.
Yes, definitely. All right, moving along to feedback and questions. Scott writes in and says, "Hi, I just listened to your weather episode from a couple of weeks ago. Does the native iOS app actually work for you both? Radar in particular. All of my devices miss entire blocks of radar on the screen. It blows my mind that Apple would let this app out of the door, even more so after commandeering Dark Sky. Thanks, Scott." So Scott is saying that in the weather app, Scott is seeing parts of the radar not loading for them. I have to tell you, I don't use radar a whole lot, but anytime I've pulled up radar, mostly on this show or on Hands on Mac when I was talking about the new weather app, I did not have issues with radar loading. I don't, this is the other thing, I'm not sure about the system that's in place in different locations for being able to source that radar. That could be playing a role in why it's not loading properly. But for me, yeah, I've not run into this issue. Have you, Rosemary?
No, I haven't. And so I just pulled up my iPhone here. And as you can see, my hometown is here, and, I'm seeing the radar data. But as Micah said, they are using different sources in different countries. And depending on what source it is that they're using for maybe not even your country, but maybe a more precise locale, such as your county or, very specific region, they may not have that data. And any agreements that Dark Sky had with folks to use data would have had to have been re-agreed upon when they became part of Apple. So it's entirely possible that something went wrong. But I would definitely recommend going to apple.com/feedback and sending some feedback about this so that they know that you're having issues. And also don't forget that you can always talk to Apple support and see, maybe they've heard of something and they know that there's something that they can do to fix it, or maybe somebody listening to this show does, and then we can send that information along to you as well. So fingers crossed something will end up working out there. But as it is, I've personally not had a problem with this, but I also do tend to use Carrot Weather myself, which has a amalgamation of other data sources available.
There you go. And then Todd writes in, Dear iOS Today, do you know of any remotes that will allow you to take a picture of an iPhone? Oh, no, excuse me. Let me try that again. Do you know of any remotes that will allow you to take a picture on an iPhone? I've tried 2 different Bluetooth remotes from Amazon and none work. I mount the iPhone to a tripod and the only way I've found to take a picture is with the camera's built-in timer, or I set it up in settings to take a picture when I say volume up or volume down. I really would like to use a Bluetooth remote though. Love your shows. Sincerely, Todd.
So there was something that struck me about this, Micah, because Todd said, when I set it up in settings to say, to take a photo, when I say volume up or volume down, I'm wondering if Todd has actually somehow turned off the volume up, volume down buttons, which is why the remotes that he's purchased from Amazon don't work, because the way that any remote that you purchase from Amazon, and I've got a link for one in the show notes, which is by Atom Tech, which I picked up to try out as a response to this, and it works perfectly. And it's a teeny tiny little remote that I'm just keeping in my travel bag now because it's quite handy to have something like that, to be honest. But the way that these remotes work is they usually send a volume up signal, because that works on iOS and on Android for taking photos. So I'm wondering if, Todd, maybe you've disabled this feature, because it should work. There's obviously the timer that's built into the iPhone in the camera mode that you can use, which I can link to in the show notes for folks who are interested in that. The other option is, if you've got an Apple Watch, it doesn't have to be an Ultra, then you can use that to take photos with the camera remote. But I feel like something is a little off here if you have to enable the volume up and volume down, or maybe you're just enabling an accessibility feature for speaking it. But the way that these remotes work is using the volume up button. So as long as the volume up button should take a photo, then hopefully this should work.
Yeah, at the very least, Todd, we will include a link in the show notes to the remote that Rosemary purchased and was able to get to work on her own device. And so you'll at least know that one does work with iPhones. Yeah. But yeah, it sounds like, I know that you used to be able to disable using the volume button as a shutter button. So yeah, I would check all of your settings, and I know that lots of third-party apps support this, even if first-party apps don't. So, or even if you're having trouble with a first-party app. So you may go to something like Halide or ProCam and check those out, because they will have features that let you take a photo remotely using the volume up button.
Yes. Another one that I do want to quickly mention, which is not really suitable for these purposes, but does work, is Shift Cam, which I featured as my app cap a couple of episodes ago. This is a MagSafe back that you can stick on your phone with a huge battery in it that has a button that it looks like a camera when it's attached to your phone, which is quite cool, so that you can actually hold it like you would a normal camera. But this button works as well, and that is also using that volume up system. So this should definitely work. I did have a look in the accessibility settings to see if I could see something, but I'm wondering if it's maybe that it's not listed as a camera feature, which is why I haven't yet found it. But if I do, then I will update the show notes if I find that before release.
All right. And now I can hear the music. It's time for App Caps.
All right. This is the part of the show where Micah has to take off of his over-ear headphones so that he can put on his app cap because, of course, we have to be celebratory for Valentine's Day today.
Indeed, we do. This, of course, is the part of the show where we wear caps atop our heads to honor our app or gadget picks of the week and occasionally honor a holiday. Rosemary Orchard, tell us about your app or gadget pick this week and then tell us, or no, first tell us about the cap atop your head and then tell us about your app or gadget pick of the week.
All right. Well, it's not a hat. I did try to get a Love Hearts hat, but it wasn't going to be delivered in time. And so that may show up awkwardly sometime next week. So I'll be ready for next year. But for today, instead, I have a lovely little headband. It's got some little sort of feathery, glittery tinsel on it. And then it's got some lovely rainbow hearts on top, which actually do shimmer. And they sort of bounce a little bit, not a huge amount. But, you know, they're pretty, they're cute. And it's not going to mess with my hair too much, which is nice because some of the app caps that we wear, Micah, result in serious hat hair afterwards, which is, you know, one of those things. The price that we pay for doing such a wonderful podcast, I'm sure. But my gadget pick of the week is something where I've actually featured a version of this on the show before, but there is a new one now. And this is the Belkin iPhone mount with MagSafe for Mac desktops and displays. And so for folks who don't remember, there is a great feature built into iOS in the latest iOS 16 where you can actually use your phone as a camera for, you know, your Mac so that your phone can actually be a web camera. And so there's a Belkin mount for a Mac laptop, which will fit onto, say, a MacBook. But that doesn't help if, like me, you have a regular monitor. And so I picked up the Belkin iPhone mount for the Mac desktops and displays. So it's got MagSafe so that I can pop the MagSafe on there. And then what you do, and I'm just going to grab, I happen to have an iPad here. I don't have a Mac here, but I have an iPad, which I will sort of demo this on because I didn't have a spare monitor that I could hold up. But what you do is you pop it on top of the display, and then you can actually adjust it so you can, I'll just pop the iPad back down a second so that I can show folks. But then you can actually just slide the camera forward on the mount. So I can do that. And then you can, you know, adjust where exactly the camera is going to be. And you can also adjust, you know, the angle so that when you pop it onto, say, for example, pretending this was a studio display, then I can actually adjust the angle at which this sits. Obviously, it would need to be sitting on a thicker monitor than this. But I have tried this on my studio display, and I've also tried this on my LG curved display, which is my main display that is sitting in front of me right now. And I have to say, this works really well. And then it gives me the option to use my iPhone as my web camera. I'm not using it right now because obviously I needed to use my camera for my phone for today's episode. But what I really like about this is, as well as the fact that it's got the ability to just, you know, balance it on, say, a monitor, it's also got that 1/4-inch thread so that you could pop this on, say, a tripod of some kind. So if you have, you know, a little tripod that sits somewhere on your desk, which is at a better angle for your camera, then you can pop this on there and use this with continuity camera. Or, you know, like Todd was saying, you know, he pops his phone on a tripod. If you don't want to have to like cram your iPhone into some kind of clamp, then you could even use this for that instead. And this is $39.95 from Apple. It's made by Belkin. It is the MagSafe iPhone mount for Mac desktops and displays, but it works with any monitor that I've tried it on so far.
That is really cool. And, you know, that's been a long announced, and it's nice to see somebody using it and actually able to talk about it, because I know whenever it first came out, I thought, oh, that's fantastic. And everybody has kind of their own little solutions for that. But that one seems like such a neat and tidy solution. The app that I'm talking about, but the cap atop my head is a pink baseball cap in honor of Valentine's Day, which is full of hearts and pink and red and fun. And the app that I'm talking about today is Lingvano. Lingvano is an app to teach you sign language. It's reminiscent of a lot of other language learning apps. The sort of learning method is very similar, and it features Australian, British, and American Sign Language. So you can pick which one you want to learn. So here is what the app looks like. I have just completed a sort of a section, but I'm going to tap continue. And then I will set up reminders so that I remember to check in. And now here is the new sign that I'm learning. So you can see the sign that it says, and you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner there is a button that is a mirror. And that is so you can see yourself, so that you can kind of watch yourself as you do the sign. So I'm seeing the person take their finger and put it to their ear, and then they put it to right below their chin, and that is the sign for deaf. So when someone is deaf, they would do that. Or if you were asking someone else, I point at you and then I say this, are you deaf? Or I point at me and then I do this, saying I am deaf. And so that is the sign. I'll choose next. And then hearing is the index finger extended kind of out to the side, and you put it at your chin and then you roll forward. It's as if you're you're communicating out loud. And that's the sign for hearing. So deaf and then hearing. I'll tap next. And then now you'll see, did you notice that the descriptions of the last video were all written in capital letters? Writing down ASL is a bit different from writing in English. You'll learn more about that soon. So here is deaf on the top and then hearing on the bottom. I'll tap next. And then it says, fill the gap with the right word. And so you see the person point at themselves and then they do the sign for hearing. So it's me hearing, meaning I am hearing. I can hear. And then the next one is the person pointing forward, and then they are doing the sign for deaf. So it's asking, are you deaf? And then I got that right, so I can choose next. And then here's where we start to see some grammar at play. It says, you may have noticed the word order in ASL is different from the English language. ASL has a limited word order structure, such as me hearing and you deaf. However, in the English word order, it would be I am hearing and are you deaf? That's because American Sign Language has its own grammar and syntax. Step by step, you will discover the beauty of ASL, a language that is as comprehensive as English. And then now we've got a new sign, which is the simple yes. I hold my hand out in a fist in front of me, and I just nod it as if I'm nodding my head. So yes. Then no is the index finger and middle finger are pinched against the thumb, up and down over and over again. That means no. So yes was the nod and no is that pinch. And then I try to figure out what this person, it's a different person now who is signing, and they are definitely signing yes. And then now I have to choose which one is the person doing no. And I know that's the second one with the pinching. And now it gives me some props because I got 4 questions correct in a row. Then bye is a simple hand. We did hi earlier, and then bye is just a simple hand wave. So I know what bye looks like. I've got yes on screen and bye on screen, so it wants me to choose bye. I've done that, and it says, you're on a roll. You just completed your second ASL unit. The next session will be a special one. You will experience a short dialogue that shows you how you can use the previously learned signs in a real-life conversation. So this is the kind of first set of lessons. The app is available to download for free. It has in-app purchases, $18 a month or $120 a year. With that, you are then able to use the advanced lessons. But I wanted to give that a mention because I think it's a really cool and really well structured app. There are lots of different ASL dictionaries on the App Store. This is an actual ASL language learning app, and it has those recognizable features of a language learning app that I think have quickly become an understanding of how someone learns a language well. We have more of an understanding of that now than we used to. And so many of the language learning apps follow those same set of guidelines to try to get you the best language learning possible. So yeah, check out Lingvano, Lingvano in the App Store, Lingvano, Lingvano. And thank you all for tuning into this episode of iOS Today. Appreciate you joining us. I hope that you got some inspiration for apps to download to check out Mastodon, some extra little utilities that you can use with Mastodon to make your experience similar to what you may have had on Twitter. And of course, always get excited about the apps and shortcuts answers that we provide on the show. If you have questions, feedback, concerns, etc., send those to us. iOS Today at twit.tv. We record this show live every Tuesday around about 12 p.m. Eastern or 9 a.m. Pacific, which you can watch live by going to twit.tv/live. There you will find the show streaming it across different platforms. Of course, we think the best way to watch the show is by becoming a subscriber or a follower. You can do that by going to twit.tv/iOS. There you will find links to subscribe to the show in audio or video formats. So you can choose subscribe to audio, subscribe to video, get the version that works for you. And that's how you do that. If you'd like to get all of our shows, including this one, ad-free and also get that warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart because you are a supporter of the network, well, you should check out Club Twit. For $7 a month or $84 a year, you can become a member of the club. And when you do, you get every single Twit show ad-free because you are, in effect, the supporter of the content. So we provide it to you for with no ads. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, all that jazz. It's got outtakes. It's got a lot of stuff in there. And then access to the members-only Discord server, a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. The price, the subscription starts at $7 a month, $84 a year. You can, if you'd like, pay more. We've had some people who actually said, hey, I'd like to give you some more money because this is a really valuable subscription. And so we flipped a switch, or I should say Patrick flipped a switch and made it possible for folks to become a subscriber at a higher price because we continue to add value to the club. We have the Untitled Linux show that is part of the club that has a show all about Linux. We've also got Paul Thurrott's Hands on Windows show, which is a short format show that is all about Windows tips and tricks to help you make the most of those Windows devices. And then my show, Hands on Mac, which is a show not just about the Mac, but also about the iPhone, iPad. It's another short format show, meaning, each episode is focused on a specific feature or a specific app or a specific question that someone has that I try to answer in depth and help you understand how the whole thing works and how you can make the most of what you're doing. So please join the club, twit.tv/clubtwit. I'd love to have you there. Again, $7 a month, $84 a year. Those are the starting costs. And we thank you. Rosemary Orchard, if people want to follow you online and check out all your great work, where should they go to do so?
Well, the best place to go is rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to the various things I do around the internet. Other than that, you can also find me on Mastodon at rosemary@snailedit.social. And of course, you can also find me in that Club Twit Discord having fun with the folks who are in the iOS Today channel, of which there are many wonderful, lovely people. Micah, where can folks find you?
You can find me at Micah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Thank you all for your time this week. Rosemary and I will be back next week with another episode of iOS Today. Goodbye.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, Editor-in-Chief of Ad Astra Magazine, and each week I join with my co-host to bring you This Week in Space, the latest and greatest news from the final frontier. We talk to NASA chiefs, space scientists, engineers, educators, and artists, and sometimes we just shoot the breeze over what's hot and what's not in space, books, and TV. And we do it all for you, our fellow true believers. So whether you're an armchair adventurer or waiting for your turn to grab a slot in Elon's Mars rocket, join us on This Week in Space and be part of the greatest adventure of all time.